Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this joint webinar between Liquidware and Nerdio. I'm James O'Regan, and we have Gavin Connolly with us. Hey, Gav, how are you?
Hey James, good to see you. Good morning, everybody. Gavin Connolly here, Field CTO from Nerdio. Nice to see you all this morning, and thanks so much for joining us.
Right, let's get going, Gav, because as we talked about, we have a lot of stuff to get through.
A lot to cover, yeah.
Yeah. So let me share the deck. Myself and Gavin this morning, we are going to talk about how you effortlessly deliver your effortlessly uh, deliver apps utilizing Nerdio and Liquidware. We kind of already covered this, but my name is James O'Regan. I am a product marketing manager at Liquidware. Gavin.
Yeah, Nerdio Field CTO. Yeah, I've been at Nerdio for about 14, 15 months now. It feels like 3 or 4 years with the kind of how intense it is and how busy we are. But yeah, it's super exciting. I've been in the kind of end user computing space for over 10 years now. And yeah, it's one of the most interesting and exciting times, I think, has been the last year or so in terms of the amount of change and disruption and great interest in new technologies like the two that we're talking about today coming more and more into the fore. So looking forward to talking about it today with you, James.
Yeah, no, there has been a lot of changes, as you say, Gavin. And, we've just recently been at IGEL Disrupt and we saw a lot
Good.
of what's coming from Microsoft. So obviously this morning we're focusing on Microsoft AVD and your app management and how we both can help. But we wanted to start off with so just to give you guys an idea, here is our agenda. So we're going to start with the key challenges in AVD. Then we're going to do a solution overview of both our solutions, and then we'll look at how they can scale. Gavin has a really good demo, which will illustrate how our two solutions kind of integrate together and can help with that application delivery. And then, if there's any questions throughout, just throw them in and we'll get to them when we can. And yeah, we're really looking forward to this webinar. So let's get started. So, Gavin, to start with, we're talking about Azure Virtual Desktop, and we're talking about it can be a bit overwhelming, I think, for people, and especially getting it optimally working natively. You kind of need a bit of help, don't you?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things on that. One, the solution has really come on in leaps and bounds over the last 4 or 5 years, but particularly in the last 18 months, we've just seen it really get better and better. That's particularly from the end user perspective. So that end user connection, the RDP protocol, Microsoft are really putting a lot of investment into that space, which has been fantastic. They are also investing in the management space, but to your point, James, to fully utilize and get the most value from that solution, additional tools can sometimes be needed, particularly around making that management more seamless and easier, especially if you have skill sets in more traditional virtualization vendor technology. You kind of need a bridge and something to kind of bridge some of those gaps into the new world of AVD and Windows 365, and Intune as well, which is kind of becoming more and more prominent to manage both applications that we're going to talk about, but also managing endpoints, both physical and virtual. So yeah, there's definitely considerations there to there's additional tools in the market to help you extract the most value from those platforms. Microsoft have built a fantastic platform, but to make it kind of supercharged and turbocharged, that's what we're going to talk to you about today. And some of the, I guess, challenges or complexities around there is definitely around the management, making it quick and easy to manage, simplifying that management, um, accelerating the deployment, making something that you know you might have to deploy in days and weeks, and this is something that you can deploy in hours and days. Um, Cost is always a big one with cloud.
Well,
And
cost is a huge one, isn't it, when it comes
yeah,
to cloud? Because it's just that control. Because you're not in your own data center, you don't have controls over it, and that's why you need solutions such as Nerdio, where you can do all of that kind of cost management and look at all those kind of things.
yeah, and it's nearly a different mindset that you nearly need to have,
Yeah,
James, going into it, right? Because before you could turn everything on, throw it in the corner or in the cupboard, and you're all good, once the electricity and the cooling was sorted, everything was
Mm,
fine. Now every time that thing is on, you're getting a bill for it, right? It's like your electricity now. So you need to have
yeah.
tools in there. First of all, you need to have tools to understand what those costs look like and what they are, and then you need to have the tools to be able to bring that in, scale that in. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And then I suppose the other thing, and then particularly for applications, because it's all about the applications and everything that we do really is
Hmm.
about getting data and applications and tools into the hands of people to do their jobs. You know, the growth in applications and the growth in different solutions. IT teams need simple ways of managing both applications and the infrastructure that they need to deliver. And we need to give them tools for them to be the hero.
Exactly. And as you mentioned there about applications. So applications, look, we've got a stat here. It says 48% of IT leaders report that their teams are overwhelmed by the amount of time they spend manually provisioning and managing applications. It's 2024 and we're still manually managing applications. It's like we've talked about how long we've been in EUC. I've been in EUC for about 20 years, and we were doing manual application. We had some level of automation, but to hear that some people are still manually provisioning and manage, it's just kind of mind blowing. But that's where we are, and you know, it's why is this? You've got app updates, and patching. There's so many patches and things. You've got incompatibility across your different OSs. And then, a lot of profile management solutions are extremely complex to utilize. And so this just adds to that sense of being overwhelmed that we see with IT admins.
Yeah, exactly. It's so important. I mean, the the application is critical to everything that we do, right? Whether we're delivering virtual applications or virtual desktops, like I said, the application is core, and that's really what users need to access. People need to access to do their jobs. Um, to making or giving the IT admins and kind of end user computing admins the tools to be a bit more dynamic and a bit more flexible in how they package and deliver their applications is crucial to really modernizing that whole platform, if you will. So there's an element of this where there may be people joining the call today who are delivering virtual desktops from on-prem, maybe on older operating systems, etc. Even from a physical endpoint perspective, they may be on Windows 10 or older. Windows 10 obviously goes end of life next year. So there's a big consideration in how to modernize the delivery of primarily Windows and the applications that sit on Windows centrally with security wraparound in a dynamic way that isn't going to have your admins, crawling up the walls.
Yeah, and you spoke about how it's mainly Windows apps, and if you think about when we were at Disrupt, Gabe Knuth gave one of the keynotes, and he was talking about Windows apps, and the main point, I think you can watch it online, but the main point was that Windows apps are going nowhere.
Yeah.
There is starting to be a slight decline, but at the same time they're actually, everyone still needs applications. Some organizations are completely dependent on, some have moved off to SaaS and web apps to a certain extent, but nearly every organization still has some Windows applications. So we do need a kind of a simpler way of managing and deploying them.
So, James, you're in this kind of industry or space over 20 years. You said I'm in this industry over 10 years. Up to maybe 8, 9, maybe even 10 years ago, people were saying, oh, SaaS is the future, SaaS is here, all those Windows apps are going away. All right, maybe they were saying it back 20 years ago as well.
They,
I'm not
they
so
were,
sure,
yeah,
James.
yeah,
But we're
yeah.
we're here in 2024 and they're not. And there's no sign that they will. Sure, apps will modernize and there will be a percentage of apps that grow and that mature into being kind of cloud native SaaS apps, particularly newer applications. But there's
Mhm.
always going to be those applications in organizations that have that kind of um, that have that client server backbone that they then need to manage and deliver out to their people across the organization. So, yeah, if I reckon if we do another webinar in 10 years, James, we'll be saying the same thing. We'll be saying that those SaaS apps are here, but the Windows apps are still holding on. I don't know,
Yeah,
unless the
well,
robots are doing it all by them, but who knows?
well, that's it. When our robot leaders have taken over, but that was one of the things. I based on that presentation from Gabe Knuth, I wrote a blog post on it, and I started off, in the case of like a nuclear war, that it would be cockroaches and Windows apps would be left.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
That sounds pretty accurate.
it's yeah, as bad as it sounds, but yeah, like Windows apps are going nowhere. So we just need to find a way to simplify the process of management. So um when we talk about you know image management, managing user experiences, there's a lot of kind of frustrations from IT around this and how adapting their AVD environment.
Yeah, definitely. People need an element of flexibility, and what we're seeing now is organizations want to manage in different ways. So, I might be talking to 20 organizations at one time. I would say probably of those 20 organizations, 15 of them will want to manage AVD with kind of golden images and kind of build out, 2 or 3 or 5 golden images and deliver them out to their session hosts and host pools. 5 of those organizations though might want to deliver applications directly onto the session hosts and not kind of have that golden images. And they want to maybe manage those applications by different mechanisms, maybe Intune, maybe something else, maybe something like uh, FlexApp from Liquidware. But we're seeing kind of now a wide array um, of kind of models, I guess you could call them for delivery. And yeah, the other element of that is that we often actually see organizations that need a blend and a mix because they might
Mm.
want to be able to do their simple apps, maybe with something simple like a Winget repository, and then the more complex apps or their line of business apps or bespoke apps through something like a Flex app. And James, we're working with 2 or 3 different customers right at this moment on some very
Yep.
interesting and very large scale deployments to accelerate their projects onto AVD. And the just a touch on AVD, Windows 365, the Microsoft desktop as a service stack, Windows in the cloud, as we're going to start to call it. Windows in the cloud, we're seeing a massive uptick in that. At Nerdio, it's all we do. I'll come on to talk a little bit about that in a while, but it's the kind of growth and trajectory that we're seeing now in organizations moving in that direction is phenomenal. Particularly, I think last year's Gartner DAS Magic Quadrant was a real game changer. It kind of felt like the only thing I can compare it to is if we went back to March 2020, kind of COVID time, where there was suddenly a big rush to get things going
Mm.
on virtual desktops as people were going to work remotely. It was kind of similar last September, October, November, where there was this rush to get onto this new AVD and Windows 365 solution, depending on the use cases. And that hasn't phased off. That hasn't kind of fallen off yet this year, particularly with kind of some of this disruption and change in other vendors in that space. We're really seeing that kind of stay strong. So it's very interesting times, James, to be
No,
space.
yeah, it is, but it always is. It's never dull. I think that's the one thing that's kept me in EUC for so long. It's never dull. There's always something new. Or it's something that's still an issue that we've been dealing with for years. I mean, we keep saying we're going to solve it, but I think we're getting closer, is what I would say.
Yeah,
Right. So we talked about flexibility, but it comes at a price. There is, as you said, Gavin, there's a different mindset with cloud to on-prem. You can't
yeah,
just turn it on and leave it. I remember hearing a couple of years ago about a friend of mine. I am not going to name them, but he
sure.
was working with a company, and they had a NetScaler in the cloud,
Right.
and it was for testing purposes, and someone left it on for a week. So you can imagine the cost. So, and this is the as you said, this is where the mindset shift comes from. You have to realize this kind of thing, that if it's on, you're being charged for it. Doesn't matter if you're using it. It's like electricity. It's just you're being charged for it constantly. And this is, and I suppose this is some where some of the kind of queries come in around, have you sized correctly? And that's a big consideration in
Big
cost.
challenge. Yeah.
And licensing, obviously, licensing is always a challenge. It doesn't matter if it's on-prem or whatever. And then there's costs that you maybe don't consider.
Yeah.
And these are some of the things where we definitely see when it comes to people on their migration to cloud. These are some of the
Absolutely.
considerations.
Absolutely. And I was having a really good conversation on Monday with a large customer, and there's the flip side of that as well, James. So it's about having the knowledge and the foresight and the right mentality going in, because in reality, a lot of these organizations have invested heavily with kind of capex investments into lots of on-prem kit and electricity and cooling and all this costs upfront. And then they come along and their users might use a virtual desktop for 4 or 5 or 6 hours in a day, maybe even 8 hours in a day. But for the rest of that day, the other 16 hours, as well as on the weekends, those boxes are sitting there doing nothing. And they're wasting money, electricity, that capex cost, right? It's not the same. They're not consuming, it's not a consumption-based model the way we're talking about with cloud, right? But in terms of that overall capex, that machine and that computer sitting there really gathering dust, right? So they had a very interesting take on that, where they kind of saw cloud as the opposite of that, where you pay to consume, you pay when you need to actually do the work on that computer and on that storage.
Mm.
So it's just important then that you have a tool, you know, a meter, if you will, to allow you to see what that is, and to control and turn down the thermostat, if you will, right? And that's what Nerdio can do to help.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. And that's a good point you made, that, we do have all these on-prem deployments where, I remember working in various different places, and every PC was left on overnight, or this, like, and nobody was using them or anything like that.
Yeah,
It was all. Now I did see, in some places that, they migrated to thin clients, so, the energy usage was a lot lower. But there were lots of offices where you just be there and like, are all these machines, so yeah, it,
yeah.
it is a consideration, and it's something to think about when you're considering price and that. Right. We want to bear with me 1 second here. We have a poll question for you guys. So let's get this up on screen. So what we have is, we've got 3 questions. Let me launch it. Okay. We want to know why you guys joined this webinar today. Is it to help with app compatibility and complexity, help to migrate off on-prem, simplify deployment and management of AVD. If you want to optimize costs, is it to do with resilience and business continuity, or is it to do with sustainability? So we will just give it another minute. We're at 46%. So come on, rest. Let's go. Let's get it up to 100%. So just give it another
Pressure's
second.
on. The pressure's on.
Pressure's on. Oh, we've a clear winner so far. Will that
The
change? We're at
hint,
84%.
the hint might be in the title, James, of the webinar, maybe.
Yeah, we didn't have that as an option because it's a webinar. No.
Yeah.
Okay, we are at 84%. Anyone else want to take part? Okay, I'm gonna end the poll now in 1 second, but we've a clear winner, Gav, and you won't really be surprised, to be honest. So I'm gonna end the poll. And okay, so what we had, the winner was to simplify deployment and management of AVD.
Okay, nice. Well, you've come to the right place.
You're on the right webinar
You're
then.
on the right webinar. Super.
And then number 2 was what you'd expect. It's to help with app compatibility and complexity. And then number 3 was optimizing costs. So
fantastic.
There we go. All right, just give me 1 second here. Okay. Right. Moving on. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about Liquidware, and then Gavin's going to talk about Nerdio, and then we're going to bring it all together and on how we come together. And Gav has a really cool demo lined up to show you it in action. So Liquidware have 4 different solutions. They are based around our dynamic applications, which is FlexApp. So these are dynamic applications which we can integrate with our UEM solution. Our UEM solution is ProfileUnity. It's a fully featured UEM management solution. And as I said, you can manage all the different aspects of your desktop, backgrounds, how the shortcuts look, all that kind of thing. You can apply rules to it in terms of controls about what you can access on that desktop when you access those applications. So you can limit an application when it's available, that kind of thing. And then also we have our other 2 solutions, which are around our monitoring and remediation. So you've got Stratosphere UX. It is all about detailed and analytics. So if you're looking at kind of a migration process, you can utilize Stratosphere for a before and after about how performance is. So it's really good for doing those side-by-side comparisons if you're, say, looking to migrate to AVD. Then we have our newest solution, which is Command Control. So Command Control is a real-time remediation solution. It is a SaaS solution, and it's designed for the monitoring, remediation, and remote endpoints. So this is a really good solution for when it comes to something like Windows 365. If you look at Windows 365 out of the box, you're kind of limited in what monitoring or remediation tools you have. And Command Control can seamlessly kind of monitor and then give you all that access to remediate those kind of cloud endpoints. And we cover physical and virtual endpoints, and we can cover Windows and Mac as well. But today we are going to focus on FlexApp and FlexApp One, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences between the 2. So what is FlexApp One? So we've been talking about applications here. So FlexApp One, it's a portable application technology. There's no app stalls. You can roll back or upgrade very fast. It's self-contained in an exe. So that's where it's very simple. You can run it on numerous different platforms, whether that be virtual platforms, physical. So one of the really cool advantages of FlexApp One is you can run them, say, on a laptop. If you're in somewhere, well, in our case, if you're like somewhere in the west of Ireland where there's no broadband or something like that, and you've got no data, you can still run those applications. Or if you're sitting on a plane or something like that, you can still have access to those applications. So we've got a really high compatibility when it comes to our Flex apps, and you can utilize various different methods for distribution, whether it be Intune, SCCM, all of this, and obviously Nerdio is one of those as well.
Yep.
As I said, you can utilize local hardware. It's great for work for home, DR, that kind of thing. It's secure. We've got zero trust. It's integrated with OAuth and Microsoft Intra ID. So you can actually this is quite a really cool feature. It's like you can put an expiration on the application. So if you wanted, say, someone to have limited access to something like, say, Visio, which, as we know, is very expensive, you don't want people have it. I'm guilty of this, as myself in the past, of, oh yeah, I need Visio. I needed it for an hour. And then it just sat there, and I'm utilizing a license.
A
So
full
that's one of
license,
the
yeah.
kind of really cool things with Flex apps, and Flex apps One is around that application expiration. So I think it's a really good feature, and it goes into that whole thing we were talking earlier about licenses and how we can help, because you don't have to think about it. You set the expiration on the application, and then the user doesn't do anything. It just simply disappears. So
Yep.
yeah. So okay,
Thanks.
so what we've got here is just a comparison between FlexApp One and MSI. Sorry, not MSIX. So if you think about a traditional application, download takes very long, many minutes. There's difference between different installations. You get lots of impact on your registry, and your installation is not very clean. You've got issues with rollback. With FlexApp One, seconds to download an application. There's no reboots. There's no writes to the registry. As I said, it's a self-contained package, so you don't have any impact on your registry. So you don't have that Windows rot that you have with traditional applications. Rollback, really simple. You disable one version, and then you can enable a previous version. Start the application as normal. So in the scenarios we faced recently with the CrowdStrike incident, if you have an issue with an application, if you were running CrowdStrike as a Flex app, you could disable that version and roll back to the previous version. So that's just one of the ways that FlexApp One can really help. So I've talked a little bit about FlexApp One, but now we've got FlexApp. FlexApp is similar, but it utilizes all of the power of kind of ProfileUnity to give you kind of that. Whereas FlexApp Ones, you can layer into. FlexApp One kind of helps with that cold image management,
Cold image.
so you
Yep.
can simplify. So if we look at organizations we've worked with FlexApp, is why they've brought us in is because they've had like 10 or 15 images, and what you can do is we try and get to as close to one base image, and then you can dynamically assign the applications,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
you don't have that kind of again, it's that complexity around images. So MSIX, app attach, the incompatibility is going up, but it's kind of low at the moment. We've got very high compatibility with all of your kind of applications. And the packaging, this is our packaging console. Really easy. As you can see all your packages here. Create a new package. It's a wizard. You simply put in your package name, version, the installer location, the package type, where your kind of repository is. And then also, if you want when you're creating a Flex app, you just put in, I want to create a Flex app One. So then you have both available, and you go through the wizard. Then we have kind of our packaging automation. So this is a whole kind of, if you want to do apps at scale, this is kind of, you utilize this kind of methodology. And when you're talking about large scale enterprises who want to do bulk packaging, this is what you utilize.
Nice.
And this is just a comparison between the two. So you can see there's a few difference. So, if you want the kind of that really the advanced features, you can use ProfileUnity for, if you need to elevate privilege. Some applications, as we know, we need to right click, run as admin. If you
Yep.
want to be able to access the registry, or if you need to track the inventory, or if you need delegated access and admin auditing, then FlexApp One, FlexApp with ProfileUnity is the way to go. So just to talk, I talked earlier about how ProfileUnity is our user environment management. And this is just some of the things it kind of does for you. So you get fast logons, and you've got a centralized profile management solution. You've got really advanced features. Some of I talked about there is we've got the privilege elevation and the application rights management, which, as we said, around things where you can put triggers and, only have access for a certain amount of time. We fully support on-prem and cloud. We're basically platform agnostic. So, we work really well on a Microsoft platform, and you can utilize Azure Blob Storage for our repositories and that kind of thing as well. So, and then, like most things, we support seamless work from anywhere. And as we know. So as I said, we've streamlined those logins. Really important is the role-based access control. So you can set who has access, because ProfileUnity is a very powerful solution. So you want to have that audit and role-based access in place. Migrations, really good for migrations. If you're already utilizing ProfileUnity, you can take all your settings and all customizations and simply migrate them. Say if you're running on-prem, to move to cloud, and it's a really simple process. You can apply context to everything, and it's a centralized policy console. So one of the things just to talk briefly about is our cloud staging. So this is very much a adaptive desktop management strategy. So you can utilize cloud-based storage as a staging area when you're looking to transform desktops from on-prem to cloud. Or you can have the two environments coexist, because maybe, you want to make sure that everything is running smoothly when you're, say, running, if you're migrating from on-prem or another VDI solution to AVD, you want to run them side by side to do comparisons, make sure you've got all the applications, everything like that.
Yeah, we see that often, James. We see that often.
Exactly,
right? People
exactly.
want to scale down and scale up kind of as they go.
Exactly. And no one wants to be doing a big bang where it's like, oh, I need that thing. Oh no, we've turned that off. No, nobody does that. As we both know, that's not a.
Well, I could tell you some stories where people's hands were forced, but mostly it's best not to.
Best practices is not to do that. Realities are a different thing, as we both know. Let's do a proof of concept. Why is proof of concept now production? We've seen that. We've all seen these things before. But yeah, so it really helps with those kind of zero downtime migrations. And as I said, this is just to illustrate it a bit more. As I said, you've got your legacy Windows desktop. You take your user profiles, your applications, your user data. You can do your assessments of, and then bring it all over onto your new platform. In our cases, we're talking about AVD here today, but we do all these other vendors, and we do physical as well. So ProfileUnity, as I said, the use cases we're talking about today in the demo, what Gav's going to talk about is our FlexApp One, and how you take the FlexApp One, and he'll go through the process of how you pull that into Nerdio. But as I said, if the scenario exists where you need the kind of more of the power and you want to reduce your image management, then that's very much where our kind of FlexApp Core solution comes in, and that obviously requires ProfileUnity. So just why would you choose ProfileUnity? You can migrate, as we said, or coexist Windows operating systems. Got really fast profile handling. You can assign applications. You can cloak applications, restrict applications. You can elevate or restrict user rights. It integrates with FS Logics. So if you need DR for FS Logics, you can utilize ProfileUnity for that. And then, you can place ProfileUnity as a full UEM on top of FS Logics. It lowers, in the world we're in today, it reduces storage costs and management costs. And I know, Gav, you're going to talk a little bit more about that from the Nerdio side, but we can help with that as well.
Nice.
It gives you more compatibility for virtual and cloud desktops.
Yep.
You've got delivery context. So obviously printer management, which was the bane of my existence. People, oh, I'm in this location. I need these printers. You can do all filtering and have a completely context aware about where you're getting your printers and that. As I
Yep.
said, DR, all your persona data apps, you can restore them in seconds because it's all stored in on a cloud repository.
Yep.
And you got a central console then for your persona apps, configurations, your migration settings, all of that kind of stuff. So it kind of just definitely in terms of a migration strategy, it's really helpful to kind of seamlessly take all your data from your previous kind of desktop environment and migrate it across in a very simple way.
Yeah.
And over to you, Gav.
Super, James. Yeah, just wanted to add one last point in that last slide is that we're working with many customers now and a couple of big customers currently at this very moment where Nerdio and Liquidware are working together to help with their migrations, and kind of not only is the kind of FlexApp stuff key, but definitely the ProfileUnity part is key as well. So, and that's working really well for them to help accelerate what they're doing. So super. Thanks for that, James. Now to kind of shift into Nerdio and where we come into that story, into that picture. Nerdio is a bespoke solution purposely built around the Microsoft virtualization technology stack, or as we're now calling it, Windows in the cloud. So we primarily help to manage Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, Azure Virtual Desktop on-prem for those use cases where you still need an on-prem footprint, and Microsoft Intune as well. And Intune is becoming more and more key to everything that we're doing. Particularly from an AVD perspective, we're helping to optimize those costs and make sure that there's cost controls on there as it's a consumption model. We're also, with all of these technologies, accelerating the deployments, making sure that it's quick and easy to get up and running. Like I said, minutes, or should I say hours and days rather than, days, weeks, months, right? And we want to make it super easy and seamless to get up and running. We had a stat from Microsoft that we actually get people up and running 160% faster than doing it in the native tooling, which is a really good stat, especially when it's something that Microsoft are telling us. But the big part and the kind of the lion's share of what we do is helping to reduce that complexity, making it as simple as possible to manage this environment on an ongoing basis, whether it be the image management, the app management, the session hosts, host pool management, policy management, etc. And there's a nice kind of fusion between the two technologies, Nerdio and Liquidware, I think, James, from that perspective. And if we go into the next slide, or can I take control? I'm not sure if I can. Can I take control, James? Is there an option for me? Maybe.
Give me 1 second. Let me see.
So whilst you're figuring that out, Microsoft have kind of start to bring together those different technologies that we talk about, particularly Windows 365, AVD, the Legacy RDP, or remote desktop farms. So anything really that you can do an RDP connection to now, it will live in the new Windows app. So the Windows app is the new kind of consolidation of all those different end user experience from Microsoft virtualization, Windows in the cloud point of view. I can even get the Windows app on my LG TV downstairs, that's on the wall. I have the preview on my Android phone of the new Windows app for Android, so I can access that anywhere. And if we go on to that next slide, James, that's kind of what we want to be from that's what we want to be from a management perspective. So
you have control.
Perfect. That's great. So that's what we want to be from a management perspective, is bringing the management of those different technologies into that one single place. So Microsoft have done a great job in consolidating it all for the end user. we're doing hopefully a great job in consolidating it all for the admins and the kind of management teams that are managing these technologies, bringing it all into one single place and one single pane of glass, for lack of a better expression. And that's particularly important as well as the Windows 365 and AVD starts to shift to be a blended mix of who's managing those technologies, because Intune admins now more and more are starting to manage more in the virtual desktop space, and traditional EUC admins are upskilling in Intune, and there's kind of a blend and a mix and a cross pollination that's happening there. So that's where we want to be able to manage the two. And James, I've lost the control. The control appeared briefly for me to move slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Well, I just keep doing it. You tell me when to.
Yeah, perfect. So this is what that looks like then. This is Nerdio Manager for Enterprise, and it's a single portal to take seamless control and management and access for administrating and deploying and managing all of the different facets of delivering out a virtual desktop, whether it be AVD or Windows 365, or even managing those physical endpoints as well. So we can help you in terms of right sizing the environment, evergreen patching and auto updates, cost management and reporting, as well as managing those applications in all those different kind of formats and the different kind of repositories that you may have. For that, then it's all about that simplified management and automation, managing the host pools, the images, the applications, the endpoints, the scripting and schedule tasks, the storage, the identity, managing it all in one place, and having everything be policy driven as well, James. That's important. You kind of mentioned that a little bit on the Liquidware side, but we kind of come in and we make sure that everything you can manage via policies within here, whether it be compliance and conditional access from an Intune perspective on both physical and virtual endpoints, full base role access control for this console in particular. And customers, particularly large customers, really like this console because it becomes the alternative console for Intune from the Intune portal and the alternative console for AVD from the Azure portal. And it means that if they have to give access to a third party or consultants coming in to do some work or to a service integrator, they can give them access to Nerdio instead of the keys to the kingdom to everything else. And we have really, really granular role-based access control within this portal so that people only see what they need to see and can only manage what you want them to manage. So very important. And if we go to the next slide, James, the other key thing and why Nerdio is really easy for customers to get up and running is it's exclusively deployed via the Azure Marketplace. It's also exclusively built through the Azure Marketplace. So you don't have to do a kind of a large, long-winded procurement process. You can go into the Azure Marketplace, deploy Nerdio from there, and then come and talk to us, and we'll help you get subscribed in the marketplace. And Nerdio just appears as a third-party line item on your Azure bill, and we adhere to all the Microsoft, marketplace policies and terms and conditions, etc. And when we deploy from the marketplace, what Nerdio is, it's a platform as a service. It's essentially an Azure web app that sits inside customers' tenant and subscriptions. So it sits inside their environment. It's made up of an app service, a key vault, an SQL database, and a couple of other elements that you see there. And then that app talks and leverages the graph APIs to talk to all of the stuff in your environment. So your host pools, your apps, your identities, etc. And it leverages those graph permissions to talk to all of that. And then we, Nerdio, the company, we don't get to see any of that personally identifiable information. We've no access into your things. We do get some telemetry from licensing from the app itself, but again, we've no access into your session hosts or to anything that's important to you, the customer. So it's a win-win. And if we go next, James, so from an AVD perspective, it's important to note that Nerdio, we don't have our own agent other than the kind of web app that we talked about there getting deployed into your tenant and subscription. We don't need any agent on the session host. We don't need any client on the endpoints that you're connecting from. We don't have our own protocol. We don't have our own gateway or brokering technology. All of that, you're using Microsoft's native technology. And again, they've invested billions of dollars in R&D into improving that technology and that protocol. I had a couple of customers over the last few weeks go, wow, we looked at this 12 months ago, 24 months ago, and it's like a different technology. It's really come on leaps and bounds. And then what Nerdio does is, as I said, it becomes the alternative user interface that gives you broader functionality and broader tooling and acts as a bit of a bridge, maybe if you're used to other more traditional VDI technologies, makes it a little bit, kind of blurs the lines between the two, makes it a little bit easier. You don't have to fully reskill your teams. The flows are kind of similar if you have that kind of knowledge already. And it's around optimizing and scaling the costs. It's about giving you additional resiliency in the cloud and mitigating risk in terms of DR and capacity management and things like that. And then automating as much as possible, automating the image management, the app deployment, automating the session hosts deployment, and important, the reimage or rebuilding or resizing of those host pools as well at scale. And then if we move on to the next slide, James, we also manage Windows 365 and physical endpoints from an Intune perspective. And we're doing some really clever things in this space where Intune people, Intune people are going, wow, this is cool. This is really cool. We couldn't do that. Or, geez, to do this, it would take me 3 or 4 hours. I can do it in the click of a button. Similar to how we really started with AVD, right? AVD was the first thing that we really kind of started layering things on top of. We're doing the same now for Intune and by default Windows 365, where we're kind of bringing the best of both worlds. So it's all about bringing in that operational efficiency, provisioning control, and automated oversight. A big thing that we're doing is things like policy backup and recovery, policy conflict resolution, policy comparison tooling, compliance dashboards, clever things like that, as well as bringing AVD and Windows 365 into the one plane and physical endpoints, and just giving you an easy kind of top-down view of all your different kind of management mechanisms that you need to manage all 3 of those different workloads. And if we move on to the next slide, James. So we can help with that deployment, whether it be image management, our applications that I'm going to talk a bit more about, or our automations and our scripting, which again will play a part in the demo that we're going to show. I'll talk a little bit more about applications on a further slide. If we go next, James. Scaling. So we'll take a second to talk about scaling. So Nerdio has the best in class scaling capability. It's a most dynamic and kind of most interesting auto scaling in the market. I think we really focus on this. So our scaling gives you the capabilities to turn those machines on when users need them and then turn them off whenever they're not in use. And we're constantly layering and adding extra tools onto our auto scaling capability to make it even easier and more dynamic in how you can restrict and control the scaling of the turning on and off of those machines, bursting out when you need to, reining it back in when you don't. And even our licensing model is flexible, so that if your business is flexible and needs kind of more compute at certain times of the year, we make it really easy to do all of that. And if we go to the next slide, James, the cost reduction strategies for AVD, that's really the business that we're in at Nerdio. The big one is faster scaling and draining. So getting those machines off quicker and faster than doing it natively or with other tools. And we really, there's some clever things in there, multi-schedule mode, turning off like different triggers, whether it be RAM or CPU or user sessions, etc. Having things like rolling drain mode and other clever things that we're doing. We also have the OS disk swap, which has a fair portion of savings as well. So swapping out the disks when the machine is powered off to a cheaper disk, helping you decide dynamically how many reserved instances you need, right sizing and updating your VM types. So we have an advisor tool that can monitor the utilization of your machines and advise you if you've overspec or underspec those machines. And then also auto scale and storage shrink. So the big thing when you have your FS Logix profiles in the cloud is that one, your cloud storage can run out of space, or the latency is too great and it causes issues between the storage and the session host. We have what we call Nerdio storage auto scale, where if we see either of those two things happening, we can auto grow the volume. So that gives you more IOPS, because Microsoft gives you more IOPS if the storage is larger. We also can do scheduled storage increase, etc. And then operations, we have things like auto healing, self-service for single session machines, let users install their own apps, change their own VM size, etc. And of course, that unified management that we talked about. Next slide, please, James. And then optimization, right? That right sizing that we talked about before. If you've overspec or underspec the machines, a couple of clicks, we can change the size of those machines, as well as showing you things like reserved instance analytics. Next slide, please, James. This is a new feature, and I wanted to call it out because we're seeing huge success with this already. We've introduced auto scale insights, where it can tell you if you've over provisioned or under provisioned your machines in the morning or in the evening, which is really clever. And we've seen users where they're over specing their machines, say from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then we've kind of gotten it right and gotten the graph all green. It's been really successful. So excited for that one. Next one, James, then. Cost attribution, very important. So we can do a per user breakdown of your costs in AVD. We can also push all that information out to Power BI as well. But it's a per user or per host pool breakdown of your costs. And you can see some of the different ways that we can break down the cost there on the image. And then finally, we have the Nerdio Unified Application Manager. So this is the ability to plug in your different application repositories into Nerdio. We're seeing lots of customers might have a blend and a mix of different application repositories, James. Some might want to do Winget for simple apps, and then they might want to do something like FlexApp for the more complex ones, or they might just want to go all FlexApp, etc. Whatever way you want to deliver your applications and whatever mechanisms, we can plug that into Nerdio, and then once you plug them in, we can help you deploy and update those applications onto your master images, your physical endpoints, your AVD virtual machines, and even your Windows 365 Cloud PC. And if we take and that's how we plug them in there into the settings within Nerdio, we integrate those different repositories there. If we go to the next slide then, James, just very quickly before we go to the demo, what we can do with Nerdio and Liquidware is we can take your applications that are packaged with Liquidware, you can add them as scripts to your GitHub repository. With FlexApp One, we can then import those scripts into Nerdio, and we can then deploy them over onto either your golden images or directly onto your session host. So let's, if I grab the screen share, James.
Yeah. I will stop sharing. Yeah, good perfect. To go. Let's make sure.
Okay.
Hold on.
Can you see that now?
You can see a white screen. Yep. There we go.
Okay, perfect. Good. Okay. So in my settings, in my integrations, I have plugged in the FlexApp One repository here. Okay, so I've plugged in a script repository. We have the Nerdio script repository built in by default. I've added in the FlexApp One repository. You can add in more repositories here. I've also, just because we're talking about applications, plugged into different application repositories, including Winget, Intune, etc. When I go into my scripted actions here, so this is all my PowerShell scripts, I can see down here, if I select FlexApp One, I can see all of the FlexApp scripts now are imported into my Nerdio environment. So I have the likes of Pinball, I have Slack, etc., in my list of scripts that I can run. So that means that when I go to create an image here, add from image library, I'll give it a name, Gav image. I can come down here, I can select my network, select my image, and that can be a managed image, it can be a marketplace image, it can be an image from my compute gallery. I select the VM size and disk, select security type. I have the option to join to AD, but we won't here. Set the time zone. And then down here, I can save it to my compute gallery. Here, I can run any of those scripts. So I can go and I can find Pinball. because I'm a gamer, as you can see by my background, and I can find Slack now. And what we will do is when we're creating this VM, I can also do clever things like install Microsoft 365 Office apps and maybe even update Windows. When we're setting up this image VM, it will run all these scripts. I can also plug in apps from other repositories. There's Putty, and we'll say .NET. Okay, so I've pushed all these apps from different repositories, including our Liquidware one, and I hit OK. That's then going to create an image VM down here. And you can see that if I go to details, it'll show me everything that's happening under the hood. I can then come back up here. I created one earlier, and I can come up here and I can set the image, James. So it's very easy to set that image. And that kind of takes away all the pain of having to do the sysprep, etc. And again, if I forgot to add in a particular app, I can come in here and I can, add my pinball in here again, okay? And I can set that. I can also schedule this to happen on a recurring basis, weekly, monthly, or even monthly after Patch Tuesday. And then I can hit save and close on that. And that will happen then every single month after Patch Tuesday. It's going to capture that image and prepare it to go to the session host. And then finally, just on the host pools themselves, I have my Liquidware pool here with my Liquidware machines that I've created. I can come over here and I can run scripts on all hosts. And again, I can run my my pinball and my Slack. I don't know why I've picked on pinball and Slack, but I can push them down directly as a one-time thing onto those session hosts directly, or I can schedule that to happen so that when you update those machines and update the scripts in GitHub, maybe on a weekly or a monthly basis, I can come and install those, install pinball again, and install the latest version of that pinball every month. So James, just conscious of time, that's just a quick show and tell, but the possibilities in here are endless, and there's lots of clever things that we can do in here. But wanted to throw it back to you just to kind of wrap up.
Yeah, as you said, we are starting to run out of a bit of time. So I just wanted to close with what do I want to do? There we go. All right. So very quickly, the benefits of Liquidware. As I talked about, we are platform agnostic. We are 100% focused on Windows. We're your trusted advisor. We've been in this industry for over 20 years. We have some industry experts and our support is highly rated. As you saw, we're scalable. We've got lots of advanced features. So kind of when you're looking to do those migrations or to manage your AVD environments, Liquidware is one of the key choices in that. So I will hand it over to you, Gav, to just talk about Nerdio very briefly there.
Yeah, just a quick summary of what we've talked about. We have cost insights and reporting, let you know that per user breakdown of your AVD costs and your overall Azure costs. Image lifecycle management, you've seen a little bit of that in the demo. Environment right sizing, DR and capacity mitigation. We didn't touch on that too much, but it's a really important one, and we have some clever tools in there. App management, which we touched on, add in the Flex apps, add in apps from different repositories, all inside of Nerdio to manage. Policy management. James, I know you love this one. We even have our own AI assistant called Nerdio Copilot that we can show on maybe the next session. Maybe I can come on your AI podcast.
Spent an hour talking, Gavin. We didn't mention AI once.
I know. Well, there you go.
That must be a new record.
Yeah, we broke the chain now. So and then HCI stack support, endpoint management, and end user self-service, which is really popular with developer use cases as well.
Okay, just a couple more things. Liquidware, if you want to know about us, really good resource is our community. There's a QR code there. If you're not a member, sign up. You can get access to all of our team, all the way up to our CEO. If you've got any questions about FlexApp, ProfileUnity, FlexApp One, any way we can help around end user computing, ask it there. You'll get a really quick response. Gav, just last one from me.
Last one. If you want, if you want to model out what your cost might look like in AVD and how much we can save you with Nerdio. Again, we're saving most customers anywhere between 40 and 6%, 60%. Some are even getting up to 70 to 80%. You can scan that QR code, go to the Nerdio modeler, or come and message me on LinkedIn. We can have a conversation. Thanks so much, James, for having me, and thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah. So just one last thing, as we were talking, we've talked about FlexApp One there. There's a QR code. We've got a repository with several FlexApp Ones. You can literally download them to a desktop and just run them directly. What it does is it installs our FlexApp service, and then the applications just seamlessly run, so you can just have them running and test it out for yourself. Finally, just wanted to thank everyone today for joining. Me and Gavin really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we'll have to do a follow-up in the future because we nearly ran out of time. We just made it. And I think there's going to be lots more to do, and lots more that you'll hear from ourselves working with Nerdio. So yeah, it just remains. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. If you've got any questions, as I said, we've got our community. You can also contact us, sales@liquidware.com. And thanks very much to everyone for joining. And that is it. We don't have any questions, but as I said, if you've got any questions, reach out to me or Gav. We're both on LinkedIn. Or as I said, if you join community, pop your questions there. Well, Gavin, I just want to thank you for joining us today. It's been really great. I think we've shared where we kind of the joint value we deliver when it comes to AVD. So thanks very much. And thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks a million, James. Thanks everybody for joining. Yeah, if you need anything, just shout. And yeah, looking forward to a part 2 in the future, James. Yeah, for sure.